The stars shimmered against the black canvas of space as Commander Jetnar gazed at the blue-green planet displayed on the main screen. His scaled skin glinted under the dim lights of the Valkyrie command ship. Earth, as the natives called it, looked ripe for conquest. "The signals we intercepted show primitive technology," said Lieutenant Krav, pointing to data streams flowing across a secondary display. "They have basic space travel but no defense systems that could challenge our fleet." Setnar's mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among his species. "The Dominion Council granted us permission to establish a foothold, but I intend to deliver them the entire planet." Around him, the bridge crew worked efficiently, plotting approach vectors and scanning for any signs of danger. None expected to find any. The Valkyrie Dominion had conquered 12 worlds in the last century. Earth would be the 13th. "Prepare the first wave," Jetnar ordered. "We will be remembered as the ones who brought these humans into the glory of the Dominion." Millions of miles away, Dr. Ellie Gordon rubbed her tired eyes as she studied the data on her computer screen. The midnight shift at the radio telescope array in New Mexico was usually quiet, but tonight was different. For 3 weeks, she had been tracking strange patterns in the signals from deep space. "Jack, can you look at this?" she called to her colleague. Jack Pearson wandered over, coffee mug in hand. He leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the screen. "Those aren't random," he said after a moment. "Too regular. Too purposeful." "That's what I thought." Ellie pointed to the pattern. "Whatever this is, it's moving, and it's heading toward us." Jack frowned. "You should report this to Davis." The next morning, Dr. Howard Davis, the facility director, listened to Ellie's presentation with obvious skepticism. His arms remained firmly crossed over his chest as she showed him the signal patterns. "Dr. Gordon, do you know how many false alarms we get each year? Scientists seeing patterns where there are none." "This isn't a false alarm," Ellie insisted. "The signals are changing, responding to our own transmissions." Davis sighed. "I'm not going to authorize resources for this wild goose chase. We have funded projects that need attention." Frustrated, Ellie left the meeting. In the hallway, a man in an Air Force uniform waited. He wasn't facility staff. She knew everyone who worked there. "Dr. Gordon, Captain Nate Caldwell." He extended his hand. "I'd like to talk about your findings." Later that day, in a small conference room, Ellie and Jack shared their data with Captain Caldwell. "The Air Force has been tracking unusual objects at the edge of our solar system," Caldwell explained. "Objects that don't move like asteroids or comets." "You think they're ships," Ellie said. It wasn't a question. Caldwell nodded. "We need scientists who understand what these signals might mean." "Davis thinks I'm crazy," Ellie said. "Davis isn't cleared to know what I just told you," Caldwell replied. "But I have authorization to bring you both into a classified program." 3 days later, Ellie and Jack worked in a secure facility beneath Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. New data came in hourly as more objects appeared at the edge of the solar system. "They're positioning themselves," Jack said, pointing to the tracking screen. "Creating a perimeter." Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. "Like they're surrounding us." Captain Caldwell entered the room, his face grim. "We just lost contact with the International Space Station, and something is jamming our military satellites." On the main screen, the objects that had been hovering at the solar system's edge were now moving rapidly toward Earth. "Get me General Collins," Caldwell barked to an aide. "Tell him it's happening." The first Valkyrie warship entered Earth's orbit at dawn. By noon, there were 12. Commander Jetnar observed the blue planet, eager to add it to his impressive record of conquests. "Begin the transmission," he ordered. Across Earth, communication systems were hijacked. Television broadcasts, radio stations, internet connections, all displayed the same message in multiple languages. "People of Earth, we are the Valkyrie Dominion. Your planet is now under our control. You have 48 hours to surrender. Resistance is futile." The invasion had begun. The world reacted to the Valkyrie ultimatum with panic. In cities everywhere, people rushed to stores for supplies. Roads clogged with cars as families tried to flee to the countryside. Government leaders huddled in emergency meetings. At the Pentagon, General Sam Collins paced the Situation Room. Screens showed Valkyrie ships positioned above major cities. Military advisors argued loudly about how to respond. "We can't fight what we don't understand," said one admiral. "We can't surrender the planet without a fight," countered an army general. General Collins silenced them with a raised hand. "Dr. Gordon, what can you tell us about these aliens?" Ellie stepped forward, aware of all eyes on her. Based on their communications and ship movements, they're highly organized. Their technology is far beyond ours. But they've made one mistake. They think we're more primitive than we actually are. "How does that help us?" asked the president, who joined by secure video. "They may not be prepared for our level of resistance," Ellie explained. And Captain Caldwell's team found something interesting in their transmissions. Nate pulled up data on the main screen. Their communications use a frequency range vulnerable to disruption from certain Earth metals. We might be able to jam their signals. Before anyone could respond, an aide burst into the room. "Sir, we have reports of landing craft. They're touching down in remote areas." In the mountains of Colorado, Park Ranger Kelly Martinez was checking trail cameras when she saw the flash. Something massive tore through the clouds and crashed into the forest 3 miles away. The ground shook. Birds scattered from trees. Without thinking, Kelly radioed it in. "Possible aircraft down in Sector 7, she reported. "I'm going to check for survivors. Wait for backup," the dispatcher advised. Could be dangerous. But Kelly was already moving. Whatever crashed wasn't far from a popular hiking trail. If people were hurt, minutes mattered. She hiked quickly through the forest, following the trail of broken trees. At the bottom of a small valley, she found it. A sleek metal craft the size of a bus. It wasn't any human aircraft she recognized. Steam rose from its crushed nose. One section had split open. Kelly approached cautiously, hand near her sidearm. "Hello. Anyone need help?" A sound came from inside the craft. A wet, sliding noise. Then a figure emerged. It stood on 2 legs but wasn't human. Its skin was gray-green and scaled. Its eyes were large, yellow with vertical pupils. Blood of a dark blue color oozed from a wound on its arm. Kelly froze. The alien. She knew instantly this was one of the Valkyrie invaders. Stared at her with equal surprise. It made a choking sound, then collapsed to one knee. Back at the Pentagon, reports flooded in of scout ships landing. Some in deserts, some in mountains, some in forests. Local forces engaged where possible, but most landings happened in remote areas. "They're testing us," Nate said. "Learning our geography, our response capabilities." Jack Pearson pointed to a weather map. "Look at this. 2 landing ships crashed during electrical storms. Another systems failed in the Sahara. The extreme heat affected their technology." Ellie looked up sharply. "They're not adapted to Earth's environments." Around the world, the first battle started. Valkyrie troops with advanced weapons attacked military bases. They expected easy victories. Instead, they found human soldiers willing to die defending their homes. The aliens took heavy losses despite their superior technology. Commander Jetnar received the first reports with disbelief. "How are they resisting so effectively?" he demanded. "Their weapons are primitive. Their atmosphere is affecting our sensors," his science officer admitted. "And their military structure is decentralized. We can't find a single command to target." "No matter," Jetnar said. "Send in the main force. We'll overwhelm them with numbers." In Colorado, Kelly decided to help the wounded alien. She approached slowly, hands raised to show she wasn't a threat. The Valkyrie watched her warily, clutching its bleeding arm. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said, though she knew it probably couldn't understand. "But I think you're in trouble, just like all of us." The alien's eyes narrowed, studying her with intelligence that transcended species. In that moment, something unexpected began. The first real contact between human and Valkyrie that wasn't based on conquest. And across Earth, humanity prepared to fight for its survival. Kelly approached the wounded Valkyrie slowly. The alien watched her with those strange yellow eyes, still gripping its injured arm. Blue blood dripped between its scaled fingers. "I'm going to help you," Kelly said, pulling a first aid kit from her backpack. "I don't know if this will work on your biology, but infection is bad for everyone, I bet." The alien made a series of clicking sounds. Then, to Kelly's surprise, it spoke in broken English. "Why? Help enemy?" it asked. Kelly paused. "I'm a park ranger. I help anyone who's hurt in my forest." She held up an antiseptic wipe. "This might sting." The alien flinched as she cleaned the wound, but didn't pull away. "I am Vritol," it said. "Scout Unit 3. "I'm Kelly," she replied, wrapping the alien's arm with a bandage. "Why are you invading our planet?" Vritol blinked slowly. "Resources. New territory. Your world. Valuable. We thought. Primitive." Kelly couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, I'm getting the sense you guys didn't do your homework." Meanwhile, the main Valkyrie attack had begun. Warships descended over major cities, deploying troops and weapons, but the invasion wasn't going as planned. In Moscow, Valkyrie soldiers struggled to breathe in the cold air. In Mumbai, monsoon rains short-circuited their equipment. In Arizona, the desert heat made their ships overheat. Earth's varied climate was their first unexpected enemy. Their second problem was humanity itself. Instead of a single government that could surrender, they found hundreds of nations, each fighting in different ways. When they destroyed military bases, resistance continued from smaller units. When they targeted power plants, people adapted and fought on. At the Pentagon, Ellie and Jack worked frantically to analyze Valkyrie communications. They set up a system that recorded every signal between the alien ships. "Look at these patterns," Ellie said, pointing to her screen. "Their ships constantly talk to each other. They need that connection." Nate looked over her shoulder. "If we disrupt those signals—" "Exactly," Jack said. "They'd be isolated, confused." General Collins gave them the resources they needed. Within hours, military engineers around the world were building jammers tuned to the specific frequencies the Valkyrie used. On the Valkyrie command ship, Commander Jetnar was losing patience. "Why haven't they surrendered?" he demanded. "Send in the heavy weapons. Level their cities if necessary." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Lirvek, looked concerned. "Sir, something is wrong. Scout teams are reporting illness. Several units have stopped responding entirely." "Casualties are expected in war," Jetnar snapped. "These aren't battle injuries," Lirvek explained. "They're getting sick just by being on the planet." In Colorado, Vritol was coughing. Kelly gave him water, which seemed to help. "Your air," the alien said between coughs. "Different gases than home. And probably different germs too," Kelly said, suddenly understanding. "Our planet is full of bacteria and viruses. Your people had no immunity to them." Vritol's eyes widened. "We didn't prepare for biological defense. We thought. No advanced weapons." Kelly helped the alien to a sitting position. "Germs aren't weapons. They're just part of Earth. They're everywhere." Across the world, the first wave of jammers activated. The effect was immediate. Valkyrie troops suddenly lost contact with their ships. Attack patterns became disorganized. Some units retreated, unable to receive new orders. In the Pentagon war room, cheers erupted as reports came in. "It's working," Jack exclaimed. "Their formations are breaking down." Ellie wasn't celebrating yet, but they're still dangerous, and they'll adapt. General Collins agreed. "This buys us time, but we need more." "Dr. Gordon, why are their troops getting sick?" "Earth's microorganisms," Ellie explained. They have no defense against them. So, the general said, the planet itself is fighting back. In space, Commander Jetnar faced a decision. His invasion force was taking unexpected losses. Communications were failing, and now his troops were falling ill from some invisible enemy. Prepare the biological weapons, he ordered. If they won't surrender, we'll cleanse the surface and start fresh. The invasion had reached a turning point. Humanity had found ways to resist, but the Valkyries still had devastating weapons at their disposal. And on both sides, leaders prepared to escalate a war that neither truly understood. The Valkyrie biological weapons never reached their targets. When the dropships entered Earth's atmosphere, the containers of deadly alien toxins were affected by Earth's unique blend of gases. The weapons became inert, useless. Commander Jetnar slammed his fist onto the command console. How is this possible? Their primitive world defies us at every turn. Sir, his science officer reported, our troops are falling ill in increasing numbers. Over 40% of ground forces are now unable to fight. And what is causing this plague? Jetnar demanded. It appears to be the native microorganisms. Our troops have no immunity to Earth's bacteria and viruses. Our medical systems cannot keep pace with the infections. At the CDC in Atlanta, Dr. Alan Rodriguez examined samples taken from captured Valkyrie soldiers. Ellie Gordon stood nearby, watching through the glass of the secure lab. It's fascinating, Dr. Rodriguez said over the intercom. Common bacteria that wouldn't harm humans are devastating to their immune systems. Even ordinary soil bacteria are dangerous to them. Can you help them? Ellie asked. Why would we? Countered General Collins, who had just entered the room. They came to conquer us. Ellie turned to face him, because understanding their biology might be our best defense. And she hesitated, because it's the right thing to do. In Colorado, Kelly had moved Vritol to a small cabin deep in the forest. The alien was getting sicker, his breathing was labored, and his scales had dulled from bright green to a pale olive. Your world fights without fighting, Vritol said weakly. Never seen anything like it. Kelly placed a cool cloth on the alien's forehead. I need to get you to a doctor, someone who can actually help you. Vritol's eyes flickered. If I am captured, I will be executed for failure. Not by us, Kelly said. By your own people. The alien nodded slowly. Commander Jetnar does not tolerate failure. The Dominion does not allow surrender. This information changed everything. Kelly made a decision. She pulled out her satellite phone, standard equipment for rangers in remote areas, and dialed the emergency number she'd been given days ago when the invasion started. This is Kelly Martinez. I need to speak to whoever's in charge of the alien situation. I have important information, and I have one of them with me. Hours later, a helicopter landed in a clearing near the cabin. Captain Nate Caldwell stepped out, along with a medical team in hazmat suits. You've taken quite a risk, Ms. Martinez, Nate said as they hiked to the cabin. He's not what we thought, Kelly replied. They're not all the same. When they reached the cabin, the medical team carefully moved Vritol onto a stretcher. The alien was barely conscious now, his breathing shallow. He told me something important, Kelly said to Nate. Their commander will kill any soldiers who surrender or fail. They're as afraid of their leaders as they are of us. On the Valkyrie command ship, Sub-Commander Lurvek reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. More than half their ground forces were incapacitated by illness. Human militaries were adapting to Valkyrie tactics, and now their communications were being jammed across entire continents. Commander, Lurvek said carefully, we should consider withdrawing to orbit to regroup. Setnar's eyes flashed with anger. Withdraw, and admit defeat to these primitives. Never. We will use the orbital cannons. Destroy their major cities one by one until they surrender. Sir, Lurvek protested. The Dominion Council authorized a scouting mission. not the destruction of an inhabited world. That violates our most sacred laws. I make the laws here, Jetnar shouted. Prepare the orbital cannons. Lurvek exchanged glances with other officers on the bridge. Many looked uncomfortable. The commander was going too far. The invasion had become a disaster, and now Jetnar threatened to commit an unforgivable crime against the Dominion's own principles. As Lurvek left the bridge, he made a decision that would change the course of the invasion and the fate of thousands of Valkyrie soldiers trapped on a hostile planet, sick and cut off from support. He would stop the commander, even if it meant becoming a traitor to the Dominion. Vritol woke in a white room. Machines beeped softly beside him. He felt strange. Better, but different. The burning in his lungs had eased. The fever that had gripped him was gone. A human female in a white coat entered the room. Dr. Ellie Gordon smiled when she saw his open eyes. "Good morning," she said. "How are you feeling?" "You healed me," Vritol asked in surprise. "Dr. Rodriguez developed an antibiotic that works with your biology, and we've adjusted the air mixture in this room to make it easier for you to breathe." The alien's vertical pupils widened. "Why help me?" "Because we need to understand each other," Ellie said. "And because Kelly thought you were worth saving." At that moment, Kelly Martinez entered with Captain Nate Caldwell. Kelly smiled when she saw Vritol awake. "You look better," she said. "The green is coming back to your scales." Nate stepped forward. "We need your help, Vritol. Your commander is threatening to use orbital weapons against our cities. Millions will die." Vritol's expression darkened. "Jetnar goes too far. Dominion law forbids destroying inhabited worlds. We are allowed to conquer, but not to destroy." "How can we stop him?" Ellie asked. Sub-Commander Lurvek would oppose this. Many officers would, but they need proof of the commander's orders. On the command ship, Lurvek moved carefully. He had allies, other officers concerned about Jetnar's increasing instability. They met in the ship's lower levels, away from loyal eyes. "The commander has ordered the orbital cannons prepared," Lurvek told the small group. "This violates Dominion law and the terms of our mission." "But we cannot act without proof," said a weapons officer. "Challenging a commander without evidence is treason." "I will secure the proof," Lurvek promised. "Be ready to act when I give the signal." Commander Jetnar paced the bridge, watching the targeting systems lock onto human cities. Los Angeles, London, Beijing, Delhi. Each represented millions of lives. "The humans will surrender when the first city falls," he said. "Their stubbornness has cost them dearly." "Sir," his communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a direct transmission from Earth. They wish to discuss terms." Setnar smiled. "So they've come to their senses. Put it on screen." The main display showed a room with several humans, including a man in a dark suit, the American president. "Commander Jetnar," the president began, "we wish to discuss the situation." "The only discussion is your unconditional surrender," Jetnar replied. "Before we continue," the president said calmly, "I believe you should see this." The image changed to show rows of Valkyrie soldiers in hospital beds. All showed signs of the illness that had swept through the invasion force. "Nearly 70% of your ground troops are in our custody," the president explained. "Not as prisoners of war, but as patients. We've developed treatments for the illnesses affecting them." Setnar's eyes narrowed. "You lie." Another face appeared on screen. Vritol. "Commander, it is true," the scout said. "Earth's natural bacteria are deadly to us, but the humans have helped many of us survive. They offer peace." "Traitor," Jetnar hissed. "You will die with them." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire on the first target immediately." The weapons officer hesitated, looking toward Lurvek, who stood silently recording the exchange with his wrist device. "I gave an order," Jetnar shouted. "An illegal order," Lurvek said, stepping forward. "You were authorized to establish a foothold, not destroy an inhabited world. I have recorded your command as evidence." Zetnar's face contorted with rage. "Guards, arrest the sub-commander for treason." No one moved. The bridge crew watched in tense silence. "The crew stands with me," Lurvek said calmly. "By the authority of Dominion law, I relieve you of command." Guards stepped forward, not to arrest Lurvek, but to take Zetnar by the arms. "You cannot do this." Zetnar struggled against them. "I am your commander." "Not anymore," Lurvek said. He turned to the screen where the humans watched. "I wish to continue this discussion. There has been enough death on both sides." On Earth, in the Oval Office, the president exchanged glances with his advisors. An unexpected opportunity had emerged from the chaos of invasion. The war had reached its turning point. 3 days after Lurvek took command, the fighting stopped worldwide. Valkyrie troops, most of them sick, surrendered to human forces. The orbital ships remained in position but powered down their weapons. An uneasy peace settled across Earth. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered with Valkyrie representatives. Sub-Commander Lurvek, now acting commander, arrived under heavy security. He brought 3 officers with him. All wore breathing masks to protect against Earth's bacteria. The meeting took place in the United Nations building. Guards from both species stood watch. Reporters and cameras were kept outside. President Harris opened the talks. "We welcome this chance for peace, but we need to understand your intentions now." Lurvek stood tall despite his breathing mask. "I have contacted the Dominion Council. They were displeased with Zetnar's actions. The invasion was meant to be a scouting mission only." "That's not how it felt to us," General Collins said coldly. "Zetnar exceeded his authority," Lurvek admitted. "He will face justice for this when we return." Ellie Gordon, invited as a scientific advisor, spoke up. "What about your troops still on Earth? Most are too sick to travel." Lurvek's expression darkened. "That is a problem. The Dominion will not welcome failure. Those who cannot fight are—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Disposable." The human delegates exchanged shocked glances. "You mean they'd be executed?" Nate Caldwell asked. "Or abandoned," Lurvek said simply. "This is our way." The room fell silent. President Harris leaned forward. "And what about you and your officers? Will you face punishment for removing your commander?" "Yes," Lurvek said without emotion. "I broke chain of command. The punishment is severe." Vritol, who sat beside Kelly Martinez, spoke up. "We saved thousands of lives, human and Valkyrie, by stopping the orbital attack. But our lives are now forfeit if we return." The implications became clear to everyone. The Valkyrie who had shown mercy, who had chosen peace over destruction, now faced death if they returned home. A Russian diplomat spoke next. "So we have thousands of alien soldiers who cannot return home. What do you propose?" For the first time, Lurvek seemed uncertain. "I do not know. Our situation is without precedent." Kelly looked at Vritol, then stood up. Though not a diplomat or leader, she felt compelled to speak. "They need sanctuary," she said simply. "They came as invaders, but now they're refugees." Angry murmurs rippled through the human delegates. "Refugees," a Chinese general exclaimed. "They tried to conquer us." "Not all of them wanted this," Kelly insisted. "Some tried to help us. Should we punish those who chose to do the right thing?" Outside the United Nations, a massive ship appeared in the sky. Larger than any Valkyrie vessel seen before, it moved into position above New York. Its shadow fell across the city like an eclipse. Inside the meeting room, alarms sounded. Lurvek's communication device beeped urgently. "The Dominion Council," he said, his voice tight with fear. "They've sent a judgment vessel." "What does that mean?" President Harris demanded. "They will assess the situation," Lurvek explained. "And then they will cleanse the failure." "Cleanse?" Ellie asked. "They will execute those who failed. including me and any troops still on Earth. Then they will erase all evidence of our disgrace. You mean they'll kill you all, even though you stopped the illegal attack? Nate was incredulous. Lurvek nodded grimly. The Dominion does not tolerate failure. Our deaths will restore honor. President Harris stood, her decision made. Then we have no choice. We offer protection to any Valkyrie who wishes to remain on Earth. This is now a matter of asylum, not invasion. The announcement sent shockwaves through both delegations. Humans offering sanctuary to the very aliens who had tried to conquer them days before. Valkyrie soldiers facing the choice between certain death from their own people or life as refugees on an alien world. And above, the judgment vessel waited, its weapons capable of destroying cities with a single blast. The invasion had become something no one expected, a rescue mission. The judgment vessel remained in orbit for 3 days without making contact. Its massive shadow caused panic in New York City. Many people fled. Those who stayed looked up at the sky with fear. Inside the UN building, now heavily guarded, Ambassador Laura Flynn prepared for the most important diplomatic mission of her life. She had 30 years of experience negotiating peace treaties and hostage releases. Now she would speak for all of Earth. Remember, Lurvek told her, show strength but not aggression. The Dominion respects power, not weakness. Laura nodded. What else should I know about them? Their high executor, Mazrek, is ruthless but logical. He follows Dominion law exactly. Use that. Remind him of their own rules. A signal came through. The judgment vessel was ready to meet. The meeting would happen in orbit. Laura, along with Ellie Gordon, Nate Caldwell, and 2 military advisors, boarded a shuttle. Vritol joined them as a translator. The small ship climbed through Earth's atmosphere toward the massive Dominion vessel. It's huge, Laura whispered as they approached. The judgment vessel was 10 times larger than any Valkyrie ship they'd seen before. Its dark metal hull absorbed light rather than reflected it. Their shuttle docked in a massive bay. When the doors opened, 20 Valkyrie guards in ceremonial armor waited for them. Without speaking, they led the humans through long corridors to a large chamber. High Executor Mazrek sat on a raised platform. He was older than the other Valkyrie they had met, his scales a deeper green with traces of silver. His eyes were cold and calculating. So, he said in perfect English, these are the primitives who defeated our invasion force. His tone was neither angry nor impressed, just factual. We come seeking peace, Laura began. Peace. Mazrek laughed without humor. You were invaded. By our laws, you have the right to execute every Valkyrie on your world. We're not interested in execution, Laura replied. We offer a different solution. She explained Earth's position. The Valkyrie soldiers still on the planet would be granted sanctuary. Those who wished to return to the Dominion could do so without punishment. Earth wanted diplomatic relations, not war. Mazrek listened in silence. When Laura finished, he stood. You misunderstand our purpose here, he said. We came to eliminate all evidence of this failed mission. The soldiers who survived have disgraced the Dominion by their weakness. They must be removed. You mean executed, Ellie said. It is our way, Mazrek replied. Failure cannot be tolerated. But it was not their failure. Vritol stepped forward. Our intelligence was wrong. Earth was not primitive. Its natural defenses were not anticipated. And Commander Jetnar broke Dominion law with his actions. Mazrek's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly for one who abandoned his post. I speak the truth, Vritol said, as is my duty to the Dominion. Nate Caldwell spoke next. We have recorded evidence of Commander Jetnar's illegal orders and proof that Sub-Commander Lurvek acted to uphold Dominion law by stopping him. He played the recording Lurvek had made on the command ship. The humans watched Mazrek's reaction carefully as he saw Jetnar order the destruction of Earth's cities against Dominion laws. When the recording ended, Mazrek was silent for a long moment. This, Changes matters, he finally said. Jetnar clearly violated our most sacred law, the preservation of sentient worlds. Then you understand why Earth offers sanctuary to those who opposed him, Laura pressed. They should be honored, not punished. What you suggest is without precedent, Mazarek said. Valkyrie living among non-Valkyrie. Many new things have happened in the past weeks, Laura replied. Perhaps this is time for new thinking on both sides. A hint of something like respect showed in Mazarek's expression. You are not what we expected, humans. I will consult with the Dominion Council. As the humans returned to their shuttle, Ellie whispered to Vritol, "Is this good?" He did not refuse immediately. Vritol said, "That itself is unprecedented." As their shuttle returned to Earth, they looked back at the Judgment vessel. The future of two species now depended on what the Dominion decided. And on Earth, thousands of Valkyrie waited to learn if they would be refugees or victims. 1 year later, Kelly Martinez stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. New buildings with curved roofs and strange angles spread across the Wyoming Valley. Humans and Valkyrie worked side by side, building a community unlike any other on Earth. Hard to believe it's been a year, Vritol said, standing beside her. His English was nearly perfect now. He no longer needed a breathing mask, thanks to medical treatments that had helped the Valkyrie adapt to Earth's atmosphere. Sometimes I still can't believe we pulled it off, Kelly replied. The Dominion Council had deliberated for 7 tense days. In the end, they reached an unexpected decision. Commander Jetnar was sentenced to punishment for violating Dominion law. Lurvek was pardoned for his actions to stop the illegal attack, and most surprisingly, any Valkyrie soldier who wished to remain on Earth could do so without disgrace. Nearly 3,000 Valkyrie chose to stay. Most had been sick from Earth's bacteria and needed ongoing medical care. Others simply preferred the idea of a fresh start to returning in defeat. The settlement in Wyoming became their new home. Ellie Gordon approached, carrying data tablets. As head of the Scientific Exchange Program, she worked daily with Valkyrie engineers and scientists. "How's the water purification system coming along?" Kelly asked. "Ahead of schedule," Ellie said. "The Valkyrie filtration technology is remarkable. We're already planning to implement it in drought-affected regions." That was the unexpected benefit of the settlement. The Valkyrie brought advanced technology, and in exchange, humans helped them adapt to Earth's environment. Both species gained more from cooperation than they ever would have from conflict. Colonel Nate Caldwell drove up in a Jeep. His new role as security chief for the settlement kept him busy. "Our visitors will arrive in an hour," he announced. "Everything ready." Today marked a historic moment. The first official Dominion diplomatic envoy was coming to Earth, not as conquerors, but as equals seeking formal relations. In the settlement's main hall, tables were set with foods from both worlds, human and Valkyrie children. The youngest refugees had adapted fastest to Earth, had created decorations combining both cultures' symbols. Lurvek, now the official leader of the Earth Valkyrie, checked final preparations. His scales had developed a silvery sheen in the past year, a sign of health and wisdom among his people. "Do I look diplomatic enough?" he asked Kelly, adjusting his ceremonial sash. "You look fine," she assured him. "Stop worrying." Hard not to worry. This envoy will report directly to the Dominion Council. Our future here depends on making a good impression. When the diplomatic ship landed, everyone gathered at the settlement's entrance. The ship was smaller than the military vessels they had seen before, elegant rather than imposing. Ambassador Laura Flynn stood at the front of the welcoming committee. Beside her were the representatives from major Earth nations. Behind them stood rows of humans and Valkyrie, who now called Earth home. The ship's door opened. The Dominion envoy, a female Valkyrie with ornate markings on her scales, stepped out. She looked surprised at the sight of humans and Valkyrie standing together without fear. "I am Envoy Thelason," she announced. "The Dominion Council sends greetings to Earth and to our cousins who have found sanctuary here." The formal words that followed would be recorded in history books. Earth and the Dominion established official recognition. Trade agreements were proposed. Boundaries were set. But the most powerful moment came later, during the shared meal. Phyllis watched human and Valkyrie children playing together in the settlement square. When our scouts first detected your world, she told President Harris, we saw only resources to claim. We never imagined finding new allies. As the sun set over the settlement, Kelly and Vritol walked among the celebration. Music from two worlds mingled in the evening air. People who had once been enemies now shared food and stories. They came to invade Earth, Kelly said softly, and left as refugees. Vritol finished, but found something better, a home. Around them, a new chapter in human history was beginning. Earth's first alien community thrived. And somewhere in the stars, other worlds were learning about the small blue planet that had welcomed its invaders and turned enemies into friends.